So the other day I was at the local Walmart, and we have a few outside of the city, none in the heart of the city. But this one in particular is about 20 minutes southbound. It's a super center. And as I was there doing my grocery shopping for the week, I had seen a woman who I had recognized who used to actually cut my hair when I was younger. And I remember when I would get haircuts from her and my mom would talk every now and then. And she had a conversation with her about how she was disappointed that at the age, which back then, just keep in mind, she was around 35. So now she's a lot older. But that she was disappointed that she was not married, that she did not have kids at that age. And now that she's a lot older, and when I had seen her at the Walmart, she mentioned the same thing. So this is something that's definitely been bothering her, been in her mind for quite some time. She's still single. And she was mentioning how she wanted to have kids and she was looking for a husband that has all these requirements, apparently. Saying that she wanted a guy who was a bit older, that has his own place, that has his own car, that has it all figured out, that had not been through a divorce, that did not have kids. And she even had some female dating coach who was giving her all this probably terrible advice, telling her to move to different cities. So she was all over the country at some point, from what she had told me. But I had seen her and she was mentioning these things. And I was thinking to myself, her mentioning this requirement of this ideal man, that man might have wanted her when she was the age of 25. But now that she's a lot older, saying how she wants this guy who seemingly has it all figured out. And I've seen this big influx. I'm sure most of us who have been on the internet have seen this very big influx of women who are in their 30s and older in videos saying things that are very similar, but also saying this comment in particular, which really is the issue of all this, or part of the issue. This comment of, where have all the good men been? Where are all the good men at? As I mentioned, the good men were the guys that wanted to take you out on dates when you were in your 20s. Not now that you've been through so many different breakups and trauma and baggage and this and that in relationships. The good men aren't going to come now. Even this whole idea of live your life and miss independent and don't settle down and don't get married because that's a downgrade. This whole idea of resenting being a wife and a mother. I want to make a point here. I want to emphasize something. That whole idea really only applies to women under the age of 35. Once they reach a certain age, that tune starts to change very fast in terms of wanting to date or rather, in terms of wanting to marry and have kids. Across the board from what I've seen. There are some women who are going to act like it doesn't change, but from what I've seen, that tune does change. It's something that bothers them. I've known many women throughout my life, neighbors and women who get to a certain age that are older where they start panicking. They go to the dating or life coach rather, trying to get advice on how to get married. Even a woman, when I would go to Greece when I was younger, she went to Greece from the UK with the intention of looking for a husband. This woman was probably in her 40s at the time. So with all that, this whole idea of Miss Independent, you will be Miss Independent when you are 40 years old with no kids and no husband. You will be voluntarily independent of all of it. And when they want a man who seemingly has it all figured out, like I've even seen things that are even further, like I mentioned, from the requirements of the woman I met in the Walmart, or recognized in the Walmart. Things like a guy needs to have the perfect smile, perfect teeth, washboard abs, from women who are above the age of 30 saying this kind of stuff. Again, if that man is out there, he is not looking for a woman who is in her 30s, 40s. Someone I know who is above the age of 35, who I was talking to recently, he laughed at the idea of settling down with a woman that is his age, that a woman who is with a woman who is 35, 40. He laughed at that idea. He's someone who takes care of himself. He's someone who, which again, I want to make a point of thing too, this whole idea of getting better with age, right? I saw an interview with a well-known actress, and she's around the age of 60. In this interview, she was trying to encourage young women that they get better with age, that they get more attractive, they get more desirable with age because they figure out what articles of clothing and fashion works better for them. All these things, nonetheless, that they physically get older, that they likely or perhaps go through breakups and stuff like that, go through relationship after relationship if they haven't settled down and gotten serious. Trying to convince young women that they get better with age and that they should never settle down. Now, you have young women listening to this kind of stuff, who are buying into this kind of stuff, who are not wanting to settle down. And I guarantee you, this actress saying that, she's pretending that she's happy. I heard this really good saying. It is, people who do the most verbally do the least in practice. So all these videos that I've seen, and just older women trying to convince people that they're happy being independent, no kids, no husband, all this kind of stuff. If you were so happy, you wouldn't need to show it so much. When I see a video like that, I even saw a video of a woman who was taking some bags of garden soil and loading them into her car by herself, trying to act like that is empowering. Now, I used to work at a garden center when I was younger, and we would do, seasonally, I would work at a Christmas tree lot there, and I would load these heavy bags of soil into people's cars, 100+ pound Christmas trees I would load into people's cars, and I don't see why that's something you think you should be celebrating. It's again, it's not easy. It's not an easy line of work. It's a very physical job. But to my point with this, you have a lot of young women hearing this kind of stuff, and they are buying into it, and they're thinking that it's going to be, in a way, empowering to be lonely, really, down the line. What I think it is, honestly, is older women trying to just tell young women not to date so they can just try to have men for themselves, or eliminate this weird competition. Because that's something I've even heard from women, where in female friendships, so-called, a lot of the time, there will be women trying to compete with one another. And this is just perhaps another circumstance, trying to get rid of the competition of the younger women who are really desirable to not want to date or settle down. Because I'll tell you something right now, I know a lot of men, I've known a lot of good men throughout my whole life, who are looking for marriage, who are looking for something serious. They're not looking for flings, they're not looking for nightlife fun, they're not looking for nightclub activities, they're not looking for any of that kind of stuff. And they're not able to find women who are conducive to serious relationships, especially, like I mentioned, women in their 20s. They're not able to find those women. You have a lot of women who will live out these things and do things in the frat house, do things in the nightclub, do things at the rave. I've even seen women where their whole social media catalog is that kind of lifestyle, the rave, the nightclub. No self-respecting man is going to look at that and want to have you be their wife. And the problem is, even as those women get older and change their tune, having done all those things in the past, men are not going to want to take you seriously. They're not. If a woman's been with so many different guys, because let's be honest, if they've engaged in that kind of lifestyle, they probably have, their pair bonding has been ruined. If a woman's been with several different guys by the time she's 25, 30, these good, self-respecting men are not going to take them seriously. They're not going to want to be in relationships with them. They're not going to want to date them. They're not going to want to have them be their wives and be the mother of their kids or introduce them to their family. They're just not. They're just not. And even I've seen this whole thing of this false idea of female empowerment, which is really just taking things that men enjoy and ruining them. Like they took Star Wars, said the Force is female, had a 120-pound female lead in it. And what's so bizarre about all this is that I've seen media, like there's been shows I've watched, movies I've watched when I was younger, that had female leads, but it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel shoehorned. It's because the characters were likable. They didn't have to flaunt it in your face about how, oh, this is now something that we're going to have dominated by women. Like, it's just something where they are taking things that typically boys and men enjoy, and they're ruining them. They're ruining them. Boys from a young age even, seeing the things they like and grew up with be ruined. Now, one of the only things I remember about school was, if you guys remember those videos that they would play on the VHS tapes in the library of the museum with the parrot flying, I can't remember what they're called, but things about animals and history and all different kinds of stuff. But I remember when I was in school, I'll just put it this way, it's a very female-dominated atmosphere in terms of teachers and in terms of faculty. But they would have kids sitting down still in one spot for 6 to 8 hours a day in some cases. And then when that kid would be fidgeting or messing with his hands or something, they want to act like there's something wrong with him. When it's like, yeah, young boys are not meant to sit still for 6+ hours a day. I was even talking to someone and he mentioned about horses, how if you confine a horse, they will start doing things and fidgeting and certain mannerisms rather. When it's like, yeah, that horse is meant to be out on a field, frolicking, and they're not meant to be confined in a small room like that, right? So there's been a big confusion as to what exactly it even entails. But what I will say with all that is that's done a lot of really detrimental things to a lot of boys growing up. This whole idea of female empowerment, Miss Independent, because you have boys being told that there is something wrong with them for being who they are. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this whole Miss Independent thing, you want to change your tire by yourself, you want to put whatever, great. But understand something. Men are more than willing to be protectors in relationships if they have something to protect. The only protection a lot of these women have nowadays is a security guy at the nightclub, because they're not even looking to date seriously. And when you get to your 30s or your 40s or older, like I mentioned with the woman who I met in the Walmart, or who I had recognized in the Walmart, don't think that man is going to come along and want to take you seriously. That's just not going to happen. Women who engage in this kind of lifestyle of nightlife, nightclub, rave, they are the most miserable across the board at any age. When I was in my early 20s and I had known people that would do that kind of stuff, go to nightclubs and go to raves and go to bars and this and that, they were always the most miserable. They were always the most miserable behind all that, the curtains, right? Because it's not something conducive for a normal, healthy lifestyle. Now, with the woman who would cut my hair when I was younger, I didn't know as much of this before, but from what she had told me as well was that she would engage in those kind of things when she was in her 20s. She didn't look to settle down. And she regrets it. She regrets doing those things. She even said that she had a man who she was with long term, and she ended up cheating on him. And she was very haunted by it. She was very ashamed of it. And again, that's where the good men are at. The good men were the guys that you thought were boring. The good men were the guys that you didn't want because you didn't want to settle down. The good men are not going to come along and take you seriously. This whole thing with loneliness, they want to say male loneliness. There is no male loneliness. Now, if you're a man that feels lonely, there are several ways that you can change that. But as I've talked about, being lonely and being alone are two completely different things. Most men can handle being alone, whether it's being single, whether it's not having a lot of friends. They can handle it just fine, right? Because us as men should focus on our mission and purpose. But women, on the other hand, they're not meant to be alone like that, like men are at least. It's just not the case. So when I see women that want to act like they're celebrating this idea, my question is this. When you see men working in silence that you have no idea that are right out, and the security guard at the club or wherever, the delivery driver, the guy adding stuff to the stock in the grocery shelves, those are the men that are alone, that are doing just fine. And they're not out there trying to celebrate how they don't need this, they don't need that, because they're fine. They're totally fine. Women are the only ones I see seemingly celebrating this kind of stuff, needing an audience for it to try to validate their mistake, really. Something that they know deep down they should not be doing. And again, what the big kind of shame is in all this is women should want to be mothers and wives. They should. They should. It's like watching someone who has all the potential in the world to be maybe a pro athlete, for example, when they're younger in high school and college, and they fall into all these bad things and they throw their whole potential away for nothing, for absolutely nothing. I'm sure you've all seen someone like that. Same circumstance here. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you so much.